There was some talk about an ethnic weapon. Project I was working on, there was, quote, black bomb.
That was great, yeah. That was the most fun I've had in my life.
The head of the apartheid government's chemical weapons program, Basson supplied soldiers with cyanide capsules and helped produce tear gas and drugs such as mandrax.
And had also come up with germs that he called kaffir-killing germs. Kaffir, as you may know, in Afrikaans, is the equivalent of the N-word. So these were germs that were specifically engineered to kill only black people.
He planned to use these drugs for crowd control purposes in the event of an anti-apartheid uprising.
Dr. Basson also gave some insight into what motivated Basson to take on the so-called role of Dr. Death.
I asked him, why, Wouter, are you doing this? And he said, I've got one daughter, and one day, and he said, we don't really have any doubt that the black people will take over the country. But one day, when the black people take over the country, and my daughter asked me, Daddy, what did you do to prevent this? My conscience would.
Project Coast was a very large-ranging project. It involved the creation of biochemical weapons. It involved the reduction or strategies to reduce the black population of South Africa, probably the most serious component, really.
At one stage, he headed South Africa's biological warfare laboratories.
An irresponsible person could have killed millions of people. Millions of people. It could have had devastating consequences.
7 years ago, Maria Ntuli's teenage son was murdered by apartheid security forces. Details of his killing emerged at the TRC. He was incapacitated with a chemical substance and later died.
Even when there were revelations about what he actually got up to, there was just not a sense of remorse. I got the feeling when I walked away from the hearing that here you were dealing with somebody who was absolutely amoral, really.
It's very simple. They must just show me what I did wrong. That's easy. All they need to do is bring one single case of anybody that was either damaged and or hurt in this process, and I live with it. But nobody can do that. I mean, it's been 20 years that this is going on, and there's not a single scratch and or blue mark and or bruise on anybody that can be proven anywhere. So who did I damage and how?
Apartheid really didn't have any scruples at all when it came to its survival. And there were things that went on in this country during that time that makes the Nazis, frankly, appear like a Sunday school picnic.
When the apartheid government was faced with the reality of an incoming anti-apartheid uprising by black people, it turned to a man for help to resist this uprising.
Dr. Wouter Basson was head of the apartheid-era chemical warfare program.
A project was developed in secret.
Project Coast, in charge of developing germs, drugs and dangerous gadgets used against the previous government's enemies.
Imagine a man who could kill without leaving a trace, who could turn medicine into murder, science into terror. In apartheid South Africa, such a man existed. His name was Wouter Basson. The world would come to call him Dr. Death. Behind closed doors, in laboratories hidden from public eyes, Basson was building a machine of death. Small vials, pills, powders, every substance engineered for a single purpose: to take life silently, invisibly, efficiently. The country was gripped by fear. Resistance fighters, activists, a world watching closely, threatening isolation, sanctions and revolution. The government wanted control, not just over the land, but over life itself.
From the beginning, this idea of, can we find a way to control the size of the black population? It got even more important over time as the size of the black population and the seriousness of the uprisings increased.
They needed a weapon invisible to the world, a weapon so precise, so perfect that no one could link it to them. And Basson was their choice, not because he was cruel, but because he could do what no one else could: wield science as a tool for murder. In those shadowed laboratories, the line between healer and killer disappeared. The doctor who swore to save lives now perfected poisons, nerve agents, and chemical compounds. Chocolate laced with toxins, drinks spiked with silent killers, substances that could kill without leaving a mark. Every day, Basson stepped deeper into a darkness no one outside could see. Each experiment brought him closer to a terrifying truth. He could kill anyone, anywhere, and leave no evidence. This was no longer science. This was terror crafted in silence. And in that silence, Dr. Death was born. But how did a man trained to heal become the architect of murder on a national scale? How did a government enlist a doctor to turn his knowledge against the very people he was sworn to serve? The answer lies in Project Coast, South Africa's most secret and horrifying chemical and biological weapons program. And this is where our story truly begins.
Scientists who worked with Dr. Basson testified that the aim of the project was to develop undetectable and untraceable deadly poisons to attack and kill black struggle leaders and suppress the black population.
South Africa's chemical and biological warfare program, codenamed Project Coast, was based at the Roodeplaat Research Laboratories. Inside the complex was a huge containment laboratory where work on the most lethal bacteria and germs was conducted.
The most frequent instruction we obtained from Dr. Basson and Dr. Swanepoel was to develop something with which you could kill an individual, which would make his death resemble a natural death.
Johan Koekemoer embarked on probably the most bizarre aspect of Project Coast. He was allegedly ordered by Wouter Basson to manufacture a ton of the drug ecstasy. He believed it would be used in the townships to calm or incapacitate blacks during riots.
There were also plans to contaminate medication used by President Nelson Mandela at Pollismoor with the untraceable heavy metal poison thallium.
They got into genetic modification, research into is there a way to have contraceptives that could somehow basically sterilize blacks without them knowing it.
He mentioned in passing that he had given some thallium. We said we had given some thallium to Steve Biko.
A project so secret, so insidious, that even within the apartheid government, few understood its full reach. Its purpose was simple, terrifying, and invisible: to create weapons that could kill silently, efficiently, without leaving a trace. Nerve agents, poisons, toxins, drugs designed to incapacitate or kill. Every experiment was a step deeper into darkness.
Delta produced and analyzed poisons and powerful tear gases. Several people were allegedly killed with these toxins.
We were quite a happy bunch of scientists doing quite some interesting work.
Each chemical a whisper of power and fear, and the methods were horrifying.
We produced at least 3 to 5 grams of the purified substance of this botulinum toxin.
5 grams is probably enough to kill about 1 million people.
It would be as a result of asphyxiation, paralysis of the muscles that assist with the breathing process.
So is it quite a horrible death?
I would imagine so, yeah.
That's an offensive weapon. You would introduce that into a food supply or into a water supply.
Ordinary objects became instruments of murder: chocolate, cigarettes, beer, even umbrellas, disguised as harmless, delivered death in a way that no one could detect. Innocent lives could be ended with a sip, a bite, a puff, and the world would never know it came from Basson's hand.
And it seems that they were using some very common bugs, and they were engineering these bugs to make them more toxic. And they were putting little bits of genetic material into these other bugs, so that if those bugs, in the event, poisoned somebody, the bugs would produce far more serious toxins. Someone would get ill with the bacteria, and the doctor would try and treat the E. coli infection, but might be completely bemused as to why this individual was also paralyzed.
Some of the most chilling allegations suggest the program went even further. There were whispered discussions of a weapon aimed specifically at black South Africans, a biological agent engineered with racial intent.
The other brief was, and very, very important one, was to develop a product to curtail the birth rate of the black population in the country.
Whether this was ever tested or deployed remains a mystery, but the thought alone haunts history. Basson controlled millions of rands funneled into offshore accounts and secret research facilities. Every operation, every experiment was hidden beneath layers of deception. He was not just a scientist, he was a shadow operator, running a program where morality had no place. Reports later suggested that prisoners and detainees were subjected to chemical and drug experiments. Incapacitating agents, truth serums, and toxins were tested in secret. Human lives became data points in a dark equation, each one a lesson in terror.
Jeremiah was killed along with 9 other boys in June 1986 when they were intent on joining the military arm of the ANC, Mkhonto Wesizwe, and join the fight for freedom. To eliminate this threat, Vlakplaas hitman and double agent Joe Mamasela lured them to their deaths. He told them that he would take them across the border to Botswana for military training.
On the way, when they reached their destination, where the trap was set, is where they were all injected. After they've injected them, they put them back in the Kumbi. And then in the Kumbi, there was explosions in the Kumbi. And there was one white man who said he was driving that Kumbi against a tree. And after knocking that tree, just jumped and then the Kumbi exploded.
And through it all, Basson remained outwardly the doctor the world trusted, the genius, the healer. Only behind the locked doors did the full horror emerge. In those years, Basson's laboratories became a theater of secrecy, where death was a tool, science was a weapon, and morality was erased. The world never knew, until now.
I had nervous breakdowns on all of these issues and many things. We suffered from it, scientists, a lot, I can assure you, and I cannot make this good. But what grieves me is that the people that created this climate is now denying it. Like if you listen to a person like Minister Pik Botha, you would have sworn he was born an ANC member. He never said total onslaught, communism, that's the enemy. Never. He denies it.
The destruction of the program seems to have been in the hands of Dr. Basson, the one person that seems to have had most involvement to the program and the one that people are most concerned about.
I cannot assure you what happened to it because I wasn't around at that stage anymore. But supposedly, according to testimony of some scientists, it was all destroyed.
I don't know whether those agents were destroyed or not, but it does seem that there was very little auditing of the destruction, and that isn't very reassuring.
I don't know what happened to that. I presume, or I hope, everything was destroyed.
There's no doubt that, in my mind, the Prime Minister P.W. Botha, or rather President, knew about the project, and that the generals all the way down from the officer commanding were aware of it.
No secret can survive forever, and for Wouter Basson the shadows were beginning to crumble. By the early 1990s, whispers of Project Coast had grown into headlines. Documents leaked, experiments exposed, chemical weapons, poisons, assassination plots. Everything Basson had built in secrecy now faced the harsh light of the world. Investigators began to unravel the network of labs, offshore accounts, and hidden shipments. Testimonies emerged from whistleblowers, from former colleagues, from those who had seen the experiments firsthand. The horror was undeniable. But Basson remained defiant. In public, he was the doctor, the scientist, the man who had served his country. In private, He was the orchestrator of terror, a man whose genius had been twisted into a weapon. The trial began, one of the largest and most complex in South African history. Charges ranged from murder, conspiracy and fraud to drug trafficking and the development of illegal chemical and biological weapons. Yet even as the courtroom drama unfolded, questions lingered. How much did Basson act alone? How much was the apartheid state complicit? Where does accountability end?
One question I have to ask is, why was the Surgeon General, Lothar Neethling, never prosecuted? Why was Kat Liebenberg never put before the courts? These are questions about people who hold key areas of responsibility. Wouter Basson, yes, is being held accountable, but what of the people above him? And what about the people who allowed financing to be made available for this kind of thing?
And where does the darkness of obedience begin?
Is an interesting question. But every country that has chemical or biological weapons has had doctors help develop them.
Basson replied he was only following orders.
Witnesses spoke of poison in chocolates, drugs tested on prisoners, toxins designed to kill invisibly. The world was hearing for the first time the full scale of what had happened behind locked doors. And yet,
Satisfied, thanks. Are you quite happy with the proceedings? So far, yes, thank you. Are you having a better sleep tonight? I hope so.
despite the evidence, despite the testimony, despite the moral weight of his actions, the court could not convict him on most charges. Jurisdictional loopholes, the complexity of proving clandestine crimes, and legal technicalities allowed Basson to walk free. The man known as Dr. Death returned to medicine, to the life he had once led before secrecy and terror became his domain. But the questions remained: who truly bore the responsibility for the horrors of Project Coast? And how does a nation reconcile with the dark experiments carried out in its name?
For me, where I'm coming from, it's very difficult because on all sides there were people, they may have been professionals in their own right, also on the side of the liberation movements. But when being involved in an unconventional war like we had here, we all did things that can now, with hindsight, be criticized. I'm saying let's decriminalize the conflict of the past. Stop prosecuting people.
Wouter Basson walked free, the man the world feared, the doctor the nation once trusted. But freedom does not erase what was done in silence. Project Coast may have ended, but its shadow lingers, hidden laboratories, stolen lives, and poisons that may never be fully accounted for. He was called Dr. Death, and the name fits, not just for the man, but for the idea he embodied, that science can be twisted into instruments of terror, that genius can become a weapon, and that morality can vanish behind the veil of obedience. And yet the world moved on. Nations changed, governments fell, but the ghosts of those experiments remain, invisible, unspoken, unforgettable. Perhaps the most terrifying truth is this: someone like Basson could exist anywhere, in any system, anywhere secrecy and ambition collide. The laboratories are empty now, the vials are gone, the whispers remain, and the story of Dr. Death, of a doctor who wielded life and death in secret, reminds us that power without conscience is the deadliest force of all. Some secrets die quietly, others echo through history, daring us to remember, daring us never to forget. Wouter Basson's story ends here, but its shadow does not.
And nothing inhumane was done. Nobody was injured, nobody got hurt, nobody was incapacitated in any way at all. Everything was done with the ultimate goal of saving lives and decreasing the loss of life and injury.
He was criminally charged. He went through a lengthy hearing and he was acquitted on everything.
I don't think it's fair. I think it's very unfair. I don't think he should have been acquitted.
And it's very difficult to prove a case like this, whether the person is guilty or not. But you know, it's a difficult thing.
I'm not even interested in
taking him to court and prove anything. I think he has to live with his conscience. You know, I mean, he's a human being. I hope he still has a conscience.